Ready? All right. So everybody had a chance to read the March 5th minutes. I do not have March 19th minutes. I don't know if anybody, did you take any notes from March 19th? I can collaborate with anybody who wants to put those together.
You sent me a copy, and I don't remember if I forwarded him or not. I know you expected me to, but I
didn't see anything, so
I forgot. Sorry.
That's all right.
So did everybody have a chance? I can pop them up, but if anybody had a chance, questions or comments?
March 5.
March 5th, everybody okay with those? All those in favor?
Aye.
Accepted. So on enrollment data, unfortunately our presenter was not able to come tonight. He would be glad to come another night.
Can you come on the 19th? 16th rather?
I put it out there. He did not give me an absolute answer on it, so
Okay.
I'm trying to get him. But one of the things he said at our school committee meeting is he'd be happy to train us, and maybe a subcommittee of this group can work on it, because they can do it, and we can ask the school committee to hire him to do an enrollment projection, or as we've found when we dive into the data, sometimes there's a better sense of ownership of that data, which makes sense. And I don't know how complex what he's talking about. I've done types of them. I haven't done multi-element or multi-factor demographics before, but I can't imagine it's too complex. It's just a question of how easily accessible some of the folks that you have to interview, because I know that's a piece, like the planner, like you did some of that too.
Yeah, I pulled all 3 planning offices.
Yeah.
To find out some basic information.
So we may even already have some of that. So that's an option too,
Okay.
if people want to pursue that.
Should address that as part of this presentation.
Yep. I think we need to do that.
Does he come for a price, or perhaps as part of your membership as a district?
So he'll come to our meeting as part of our membership. I'll double check that. I believe that's the case. That he didn't say that there was an additional cost. It's just that if we contract with the firm to do any other study.
Actual study.
Actual study, yeah. So, and there are other firms obviously out there too, so we could write a request for proposal and ask the school committee to see if they would support that.
Okay.
So,
Let's see if we can get him here for the 16th.
so I guess it's, you want to go on with this?
Sure.
I'll flip it up there.
Okay, you have a
Yeah.
copy? Do you want to do edits, or?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
I've got my PC. Okay.
If I can. You know what? I think I put down.
Is that the
This
PDF
is the
copy?
PDF copy.
All right.
Can you zip me an electronic version? Or do you want to just? You can just take notes.
Well, let's just. Actually, the big question is, can I hook up? Because I know I need an adapter. I just the question of, did I bring the correct adapter?
Yeah. I don't know if I have a dongle or not.
Well, can you just unplug from yours and?
Yeah. Is yours like that?
It
Yeah.
should fit.
Yep.
All right, good. So I brought the right adapter. Here it goes.
And even the right gender.
Yeah. Hey, Lynn. Hey, Lynn.
That's not it. part of my screen up there. I don't know why it doesn't have all of it.
It might just be that it's on another part of the. Is that better? I don't see anything on this side. Is there anything on that side?
No. No, I've got there should be something right in the middle. It's like, oh, I wonder if it,
Empty space.
no, I've got the
You have to do
document.
like F2 or I mean F4. 4.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
there
go.
it is. Okay. Right, so we just need to straighten out that projector a little bit, so people aren't lopsided looking at it.
There we go. Titanic effect.
Yeah.
So can everybody see that all right? All right. So our first interim report was something we reviewed at the December meeting, and it really reflected what we learned up to the November meeting. And because of the holidays and some illnesses and some weather, we didn't really approve it until the beginning of March. In the meantime, I think we covered a lot of ground, starting with Perry's presentation on December 18th. And my feeling was that at this point, there were probably a number of things we could write down as agreeing on. And so this is an attempt to do two things. One is to kind of put a stake in the ground about things we agree on, and give an overview of why we have come to the conclusions that we have, and then move on to what are other things that we have to do. And that's pretty much the point of the first paragraph there. Now, I don't know how many people had a chance to go through this. I assumed I would go through it paragraph by paragraph, but I don't want to do that if everyone else thinks that some other approach is more efficient.
I have one paper copy here if anybody needs paper. Lynn, do you
Okay.
need a paper copy?
Yeah, I'll take it.
So from the clamor, I'll go through it paragraph by paragraph. And as David suggested, we can make any edits live, right, instead of having to wait to get them. So the first paragraph is basically just a recap of what I declared, that this second report incorporates information learned since November and updates the community on the task force direction. The executive summary, is probably going to be a little controversial from the point of view of saying, well, these are our conclusions, but how can we state our conclusions unless we've got consensus on the rest of the document? So I'll just briefly go out and go over the executive summary to emphasize the points that I think the rest of the document makes. And that is that we're already overcrowded. It's not a matter of avoiding it. We're already in that state. We've been in that state for a couple of years. And although the school was designed to handle a greater population than we currently have, since the 2002 renovation, actually as part of the 2002 renovation, and since then, some general purpose classrooms have been taken out and repurposed for special needs. Not special needs kids, but for particular academic purposes, as well as some special education programs. And that's cut the capacity of the school.
And these specials are state mandated? These general classes that were taken over, they were taken over?
We took a couple out and made art classes. We made computer labs.
Okay.
We made 4 classrooms were given over to special education needs.
So it's a mix?
So, yeah, so we're down, since 2002, 6 classes have been taken out of general use and assigned to special purposes.
Okay, but there's a difference between curriculum inquiries and state mandated inquiries.
Has any of it been state mandated?
Only the special education, really.
I mean, we have to have space to serve students with IEPs,
Okay.
so that's,
So the state may not mandate exactly what that space is, but space was taken out to address, I guess, the legal requirements of special education
there are
students.
requirements about ratios of adults to
Okay.
students in that space.
And similar space.
Yeah. So
What are those ratios, by the way? Just
I think it's 8-to-1.
So, we took out 6 classrooms, and I think it's pretty clear that, as I'll go into an explanation in a couple of minutes, that those need to be restored. And as we saw last week, last meeting, the science labs are maxed out, so we need at least one more science lab. And that's today. That's not projecting of any changes coming forward. We're simply saying that as of today, we need 6 more general purpose classrooms and 1 additional science lab. If nothing else ever changes, that's what we need today. Okay? And I go on to say this doesn't address the classroom needs for future growth or for curriculum changes requiring specialized spaces. Separately from any overcrowding, oops, sorry. I also make a point of bringing to people's attention that aside from overcrowding, aside from population growth or curriculum change, that the high school teachers and administrators have identified a list of building shortcomings that are inconveniences or distractions to teaching. And what those are is a list in the report. And finally, I go on to say that there are still some areas of investigation from the first interim report that we haven't addressed, and I recap what those are later in this document. Okay, so going on to the meat of the report, which is meant to, and I think at the end, we'll come back to the executive summary and ask if the rest of the document really supports what's in there. So the loss of building capacity. After the renovation in 2002, the school was believed to be large enough to accommodate a student population of 1,250. We have 1,183 in the current school year.
1,083.
I'm sorry, 1,083, okay. So we make the first live edit. And then we're going to do a save as, so we don't mess up the master copy. Sorry, I've lost too much stuff to... which is 1,083 in the school year. And so it's already overcrowded. And with 100 students using the auditorium as their homeroom.
You'll get tired of me making like little picky changes. I would say auditorium foyer, because they're not actually scheduled in the auditorium.
Okay.
And rather than as saying as their homeroom, I would say as their study hall location.
Well, where are they before school starts?
So we use homeroom very sparingly. That doesn't happen on a daily basis. So on a regular day, kids just go to their 7 classes. They don't actually go to a home base.
Okay.
And when they don't have a scheduled class, they go to study hall, and that's when they're going to the auditorium foyer or the media center.
Okay. For their study halls.
So the auditorium foyer doubles as a homeroom when the students need to be
It
at
does
home.
not. No.
Oh, did I miss? I must
We
have.
send, when kids have homeroom, we send them to, I don't think we have anybody scheduled for homeroom before. We send
Media
places
center.
all over the building. Yeah, we send-
Media center's a homeroom, but not the foyer.
Yeah, we don't use the auditorium.
So that's something though. That's
But
something.
where do you send the students?
Media center, not the
Okay.
auditorium, when they need it.
Homeroom is not a common,
So when you have homeroom.
if we have a homeroom.
And every homeroom is full. It's not like you have some that only have 10 students or something.
What do you use homeroom for?
So occasionally we'll use it to do things like hand out schedules. So we might have, a brief homeroom in the morning. Every other Friday, we have something called activity period, which is where we kind of carve out a 40-minute period of time, and we use that for things like assemblies or different activities. So we've had times when upperclassmen have gone into freshman homerooms and worked with freshmen around things like how to study for midterms. So it becomes kind of a home base for kids during activity period before they then go out to other places in the building. And they might stay in homeroom during activity period depending upon what we're doing.
So there's no more like 15-minute take attendance,
No.
listen to announcements from the principal?
Nope, so we do announcements at the beginning of second period every day, and because we have a rotating period, it doesn't hit the same
Oh,
period. So we'll do brief morning announcements. We do video announcements on Friday so that kids actually watch a video thing in the classroom. And teachers take attendance in every class period.
okay. Thank you.
Now, for the auditorium foyer, basically a glorified hallway,
Yes.
all right? I mean, kind of.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
And so would we want to call it the hallway, right? I mean, I think there's some people that look at it and say, well, okay, to have it in the auditorium foyer, what's so bad about that? Like,
It sounds fancy.
Yeah, it sounds,
like,
Sounds upscale.
nice.
Sounds upscale.
Say it.
And we don't want to have an upscale.
no, I mean, it's really kind of a hallway, so.
It is a hallway.
Yeah.
People aren't paying taxes to have foyers in the school, right?
And I get that, but that particular corridor is very wide and it's a dead end. It's not like you're gonna have traffic going through it. It's a dead-ended area.
Well, you could have a dead-end hallway in any building out there, so it kind of it doesn't change that it's a hallway. I think you're just using terminology that most people would be more familiar with.
It has the doors at the end.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's
Give a
exits
lot.
there, but what I mean is, it's at the end of the building, and unless people are going into the auditorium, there's really no cross-traffic through there.
Sure.
Yep.
Kids would not normally be walking through that hallway to get to somewhere other than the auditorium if they have class.
So it's actually kind of convenient, not that I'm defending it, it's not as bad as it sounds when you say it's a corridor, because then you've got lockers and people moving, and it's really distracting. That's not that,
Yes.
you're just using space. Beauty. Thank you.
At a location in the cafeteria.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, there's probably less traffic there than the cafeteria.
Much less.
Yes.
That's why we chose it.
And that's when they have tables pulled out, they're not on the floor, right? They have tables and chairs pulled out.
Correct,
from
they
the
do, yep.
ma-
Yep, we have
already-
octagonal tables that use
Oh, they actually use those in that area?
in the hall, yes, in the foyer.
This place is sounding better and better. I thought they were sitting on the floor.
They are sitting on the floor.
No, they're
Carrie.
on tables.
Great place.
There are
They're
occasions.
sitting floor.
That's during lunch.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
We took care of most of that too.
Yes.
Pardon?
We took care of the sitting on the floor during lunch too.
Oh, yeah.
No, they have space.
So I've modified this to say that in the 2014-2015 school year, the school is seriously overcrowded with about 100 students using the auditorium hallway as their study hall due to lack of classrooms. The media center is used for students without homeroom classrooms when a homeroom is required. Okay. And this is due to the removal of 6 general-purpose classrooms, accommodating between 120 to 150 students. And that number is assuming somewhere between 20 and 25 students per classroom. For specialized uses, 2 classrooms were divided into smaller rooms for art classes and classes needing small section sizes, and special education classes that require kitchen and bathroom facilities were added by converting 4 general-purpose classrooms.
I missed, I apologize.
Special education classrooms that require kitchen and bathroom facilities.
We're converted for,
We took
General purpose
a
classes.
teacher's room and made that into a special ed classroom.
the ASC has a sink, and that used to be Reg Ed. The,
You mean 216?
yeah. The room,
There are 2 life skills rooms, but were those ever used as?
yes, because that used to be the student store.
Student store, yeah.
both life skills rooms used to be reg ed, and they were down in what is now the faculty room. It was a single room when it was case.
Transitions, a classroom.
Used to be a teacher's room.
That was the teacher's room. And there is a sink in 207, but that was originally built as for special ed. That was our A class, what turned into LC3.
And we overtook what used to be the teacher's room, made that a classroom up by foods. Years and years, when I first got here, that was the teacher's room.
Where 208 is?
Or they- or they-
Where the old English the current English office
Right.
is in the place.
Sorry, we're getting distracted here.
I know. So
We're-
running down history, right?
The original.
Trying to
So
figure
that
out,
used
I'm
to
trying
be
to
the
figure out
teacher's room, then we
what the accurate
split
number is.
what was 403B into two. It used to be one room, we split it into two rooms,
Right.
made it a classroom, and then put the teacher's room behind it. So we ended up with a net gain of two classrooms.
Yeah.
But it's accurate to say, isn't it, the 4 general purpose classrooms were converted in special education space?
Yeah.
Because you get 260.
Right, because
Two
when
of
we,
seven.
when we rebuilt the, when we did the renovation, all of special ed was supposed to be up in, must be 215, the LC3 area. So there was gonna be Pauline Cole's office, there was gonna be the conference room, there was gonna be the testing room, the big open area for her secretary to be there, and then the 2 long rooms were gonna be the 2 learning centers. And then we had a sink in 207 for what was then the A class. Very quickly that changed. And we moved things around.
So, I think it's probably accurate to say that 4 general purpose classrooms were converted into special education space, but I'm not sure it's exactly accurate to say special education classes that require kitchen and bathroom facilities were added by converting 4 general purpose classrooms, if that makes sense. Four general purpose classrooms were converted into special education space. In some cases, there was the requirement of kitchen and bathroom, but not in all cases.
Right.
If we're splitting hairs too much, let us know.
I want this to be a consensus-driven document. So special education classes were added, classrooms were added by converting 4 general purpose.
I think that's-
Are you comfortable with that?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
What about the 2 classrooms that were divided into art rooms? Is that right?
So we had a big art room, and then we had a general purpose classroom that was taken over to become an art classroom, and then the big art room was divided into 2. So one big classroom was divided into smaller rooms for art, and a regular education class space was taken for art space.
But was it already art?
Yep.
It wasn't. It was never art, okay.
But that happened a while ago.
Yeah, that was a foreign language classroom. We took a foreign language classroom when we added another art teacher.
But, so 2 classrooms were converted to become 3 art classes.
Correct.
When existing
An
art
art room
class
and a gen
was
ed.
divided, and a regular education classroom was converted into an art classroom.
But for this purpose, 2 classes became 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Are we okay? Not hearing any objection.
Keep going.
So, we just stated the school's overcrowded, how it got that way, so what? So we start going through the effects of overcrowding. Approximately 100 students each period are scheduled for study halls in locations unsuitable for learning or study. Most students take their study hall in the hallway, in the auditorium hallway, because we've downscaled the foyer.
I'm actually kind of objecting to that. Only because That is a great area. I mean, if you've got tables out there.
I would say great.
But you know what, even if it is though, it's still a hallway, I think.
It's not crowded, but there's a crowd there,
Yeah.
It's not used for its original purpose.
and it's certainly not designed for its current purpose.
Correct.
So yeah, they're not out in the street or in filthy conditions, but
It's like acoustics are.
But the room is so, I mean, that hall is so large that, I mean, it's not dissimilar to what we do at Center when we've got this really large room and then you put the tables out to actually suit its purpose. You know, so, you know, I commend you for doing what you're doing, and I agree that it's not the most optimum thing to do, but I also don't want to make it sound like, oh my God, we got kids in the hall. It's set, I mean, it sounds like it's set up in such a
You
way
do
that
have kids in the
it's-
hall.
You do.
That's the whole point.
But no, it's because
So
of the
you may
size
not
of it.
think it's
it
bad
may
to
be
have
the
kids in the
best
hall, but-
hallway in the school, but it's
Yeah.
still the hallway.
Keep in mind, by one of the things, by not being a classroom, kids aren't at their own desk working, there's no supplies, there's no, you know, it's,
But it's not elementary school either, so there isn't a desk they're gonna go to where they're gonna have supplies there.
well, I think when kids are in classrooms, I hear what you're saying, and I understand conceptually how it looks like it's okay, and it's a lot better than the cafeteria, but it's not conducive to,
Well, I guess my objection isn't that it's optimal, or that this is where we wanna go, but I have an objection with it being listed the way it's being listed here.
So the editorial
Yeah.
stuff is what you're concerned.
Because I don't want to, because at this
rather
point, we're
than
putting an
facts.
opinion on something that we're stating, this is a bad thing. And I'm saying, you know, it's
No,
not
we're
necessarily.
stating it's a hallway.
so how about if we call
But
it
you know
a
what,
foyer,
it
but
is
at the
so
first time we
wide.
do,
It
we
is so
say,
wide
we
and wide. It
designate
is a
what the
big
foyer
space.
is.
And if you lay it out correctly, it is not, I mean, it's even better than, I would rather sit there than I would in the
So
cafeteria.
what in the copy, but Lynn, what in the copy are you taking issue with? Because it is a hallway, we call it a
Yeah.
hallway, but your concern is that we're
We're-
demeaning the hallway.
Well, not to mean in the hallway.
What are we,
It's-
but
It's,
but there must be something in here that's not feeling right. What words, or is it that we're just pointing it out?
Well, we're not pointing it out. We're painting a horrible picture of this area like it's maybe a safety hazard or something, and it's not. I mean, when initially when this first came out, I'm like, oh my God, they're sitting on the floor. And you're saying, no, this table's out there and it's organized. So the picture we're painting is terrible. But it's not, you know, you've taken a situation where, yes, it is a hall, but it's much wider than a regular standard hallway. It doesn't have a lot of traffic going through it, and if you lay it out correctly, it's actually not bad, from what I'm hearing that you can do with it. Because, you know, I've been there for events or whatever, so it's not as, yes, it's a hallway, I get that. But when you first read it, they're sitting on the floor.
But I think
That's
the
not
foyer
what's
sends
here.
the opposite message.
No,
that
you can get
it
rid of
sounds
the
extremely
foyer. You
nice.
can get rid of the foyer. You can get rid of the foyer. But again, this isn't your standard hallway. This is a very large space.
But the you know, right next to this, we state that this is a large space with lighting suitable for a hallway, but not for prolonged and intensive study.
And you know that. You know what the lighting foot candles are, you know.
I do.
Or you just stay where it is.
It's not good lighting.
I've been in there enough to, you know, between there and the classroom to, I'll bet dollars to donuts, the lighting's below any standard you want to set.
The lighting's not great in the gym, and I'm not discounting
No,
what
that's
you're
fine.
saying at all, but I'm just having
good.
been in that area a lot with drama club, when there's a gym class going on, it's really loud. But I think that's because it's cavernous in the gym.
From the code standpoint, any hallway has minimum candela requirements as a transient path that you need
It
to
does.
go.
Yep.
But that doesn't apply to normal classrooms and all other stuff. So like in transit, you're allowed to have lower candela ratings because of that.
And I get that.
Yeah.
But we're making a statement and we don't know.
I do know. I know that
We had it
hallways
before.
can.
No, it's not, you don't know what the, I mean, they might have gone in there and put different lamps in there, you don't know that. But, because
Well,
nobody's
wow,
actually
this
gone in there and do that. I
facility.
just don't wanna put statements in there that we're guessing, because we don't know. We don't know what the volcano level is at table height. You know, we don't know that it's as bad as you say.
Yeah, so.
So if we're gonna make the statement, write the right one. I mean, I just don't wanna paint a picture, like, we don't say that there are tables there, we don't say that they're putting out
He didn't
tables
put
and
any
they're.
poor adjectives. I think he just stated the facts, and I don't see anything wrong with the way the facts are stated. If he said dimly lit,
No,
echoey
no.
hallway, and
But what he
there's
said
mics
was.
running by, he didn't
it's-
say any of that. He just said that they're in the hallway,
Right.
and that's where they are. It's not a foyer, it's not a corridor, it's not an amphitheater, it's,
But as somebody
It's a
reading
hallway.
it, you know, and I put it up there, they're sitting on the floor. And it wasn't till we started asking questions, well, there's tables.
So, would a fix for this be that if you added, that there are, mobile tables
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I could put in here, there is seating available in this large space.
Well, there isn't, they're actually tables that move in and out.
They're
Okay.
mobile.
custodians bring
In the
in tables
custodian
and chairs for the
hallway.
students.
On
Which they
mobile
probably could be doing
tables.
something else during that time, instead of moving tables and chairs.
But I think if.
So most students take their study hall in the auditorium
I'm not trying
hallway.
to say that we should, you know, this is space and we're good. I just don't want to paint it so bad that there's panic that we have.
It's obvious, but
Look,
a
we're-
good chunk of the kids actually do go to the media center. They choose, they're assigned to the auditorium foyer, but we give them the option to go to the media center, so a good chunk go to the media center. I don't know if that's.
Perry,
actually what
the
we need.
important thing to me is they really don't have a place to go, a suitable place to go.
Just don't make it sound like a dungeon.
But it doesn't sound like a dungeon. I mean, I don't particularly like the space, but I didn't describe it. All I say, it's a large space. There's no implication of overcrowding here. There's no sense of, you know, kids gotta go to the bathroom, so they have to step on other kids to get to it and stuff like that.
But if you told me somebody was in the corridor, I picture them on the floor. Because you don't picture tables in a corridor. You know, it just sounds a little more organized than, and I'm not advocating that we should continue to use this space as we're using it. I just don't want to paint it as a horrible place that,
So would it be helpful if it said as little as, with tables that are specifically for this, devoted to
Yeah.
this study hall, or something similar that admits that it's slightly
there's a
improved?
setup, yeah, with some organization.
Study hall, the auditorium hallway. Is there a code violation on having furniture in the hallway?
Only in not having egress. So they would have to set up some halls, that there's actually,
They'd have to set up what?
they would have to.
Pathway.
You have to be
They would
clear
do
egress
pathways.
paths, whatever egress width
Okay.
you need, you'd have to kind of keep a clear aisle that wide
Okay.
through that space.
So they're in the
I would
study.
actually say technically there is, because the code says that you have to have egress as wide as the door. Because the tables are there,
Yeah.
it isn't. So, I'm just pointing
It's a pretty wide space though.
Yeah, there's room.
out. Right,
It's been inspected and we have not been cited.
right.
Okay.
Not cited.
Okay. So most take in the auditorium hallway on flexible furniture?
Portable, mobile.
Yeah.
Mobile furniture or portable?
Mobile tables?
Because it's got to get moved away at the end of the day, right?
Folded tables.
This portable's good, portable's good, because that's what they are, they're portable tables.
They're on wheels.
Oh, they're on wheels, or are they folding card tables?
They're on, they fold and you can push them around on
Are they
wheels.
the cafeteria tables?
Yes.
Formally.
Yeah, they're the same as the octagonal cafeteria tables. They're not the long ones, they're octagonal.
Oh,
But yes, they are the same as the octagonal
Okay.
cafeteria tables.
they must be the same thing.
Unsuitable for learning or study. Are they really unsuitable?
It's less than ideal, I would call that unsuitable.
I could use less than ideal, but not unsuitable, because unsuitable means you can't use it.
Not ideal, or some other adjective that,
Not ideal, you said.
Less than ideal.
Again, it meets code, but it's not.
Or how about not designed for learning or study?
Yeah.
Perfect.
thank you, Lorraine.
Let's borrow that phrase often.
That's what that
Right,
mark.
and there are a lot of sections.
Right, right. The space and the furniture
Yep.
are both not designed for learning or study.
Exactly.
Environment.
Pylon.
Okay, anything else there?
Just change it on the first sentence. Still
There's-
says unsuitable.
It's locations
It might be
not
re-
designed.
And then you say the large number of students placed, I mean, how many kids are usually there? Because you said you gave them an option. Is it a large number, or is it just students?
So I would say the highest we generally have down there in a given period is 30 to 35. That's because a significant number of students are choosing to go to the media center instead. So the media center then gets hit with 60, 70 kids.
So that means that the media center then becomes less of a study, quiet space.
Correct.
And
So
not
that
a study
probably
hall.
should be bundled into that somehow.
But you gotta get rid of the large number of students, because you don't have a large number of students.
It's the
They're
large number of
scheduled.
students that don't have a place. Some of them stay there, and then a bigger complement go to the media center, which then impacts the effectiveness of the media center space. Is that right?
Yeah, but that last sentence, that's not what that says.
But I
Yes.
thought I
How
read
about the
earlier there was
large-
100 students that could be there if no one's selected to media center.
But
That's
only
accurate.
30 go.
That's accurate. They're given the
So
option
there's-
of going to the
so
media
it could
center.
be-
Basically, they start out
They're
assigned
assigned.
there.
That is correct. They start off assigned there, then the media center allows them to do a permanent media center pass so that they get to go to the media center instead of to the foyer, but they are initially assigned to the foyer.
What?
How about instead of most, majority or something?
No, I think 100 is a large number.
No, but just saying.
Well, I heard it was like a 60-30 split.
Yeah, 35, 65, something like that.
And it can be more than that.
Let's take this to the remainder of study hall important too.
But that just brings up the issue that the media center is impacted,
Yes,
right? And that's not a good thing for kids that need to study,
that is correct.
especially kids that need quiet space to study.
It is hard to find a good quiet space in the media center. You've got a kids can because of study. And if you've got a class or two in there, it's packed tight.
Large,
So there can be a class and a
Correct.
study hall at the same time?
Yes.
So
That's
might
less
this
than
be
ideal.
an ad hoc class, or might there be an ordinarily scheduled class?
It would be, there are not classes that are regular, that are scheduled to meet in the media center. It would be if a teacher signed out space in the media center to take their
There's
class
this
there.
occasion where it's a useful space to be, and so we will, this meeting be there.
And other guidance will use that
Our
use
guidance
space in the
seminars.
media center for guidance seminars.
We bring in the Chrome cart, the Chromebooks, and have in the back area. And it's actually a space you can check out now. We call it the Learning Commons. So teachers can reserve the Learning Commons and the Chrome cart to bring a class back there. It's used pretty regularly.
So functionally, it's an ad hoc computer room because of that opportunity.
Oftentimes used that way, yeah, with a Chromebook card. Yeah, I would say that's pretty common.
Well, I think basically it's, we have got approximately 100 students each period is scheduled for study halls in locations outside of the okay. So most students took the study hall.
is it fair to
Take
say?
out the large number of students placed in the hallway each period, make the distractions of cooperative work between students, because that's, you're making an assumption, and basically I think what it needs to be said is that a lot of them opt up to the media center, which causes a problem in the media center. Because at that point, it's not that it's noisy, it's just because there's just so many kids there. That's not, I mean, they're not noisy up there. When the kids go to the media center?
No, they're not.
It's just noisy because there's people.
Well, it's
There's
the
a lot of
problem
people in
with, isn't it the problem with the students that are in the hallway, the students don't want to be there for whatever reason, And I'm sure you wouldn't say to them, oh, you don't have to have a reason if you don't want to be there, so.
We did.
What about?
They opt out and go to a media center, they're given a pass.
Right, but I think to your point of taking away that there's distractions and prohibits cooperative work, we don't actually know if that's true or not true, so.
They're going to the media center because the creature comforts are better there. They're not going because
Creature comforts, computer access,
it's more entertaining.
and better, I mean, if you want to sit around a table with 5 people and work on something, it's much more accommodating to do that in the media center than it is to do that in the foyer.
Okay.
Lighting's better.
Unfortunately, I could just.
So where are we on this? Is this a problem or not?
You can use the computers, you can print things out.
Because it's such a hot ceiling.
Well, students place in this hallway. Each period makes for distraction for All right, so if you don't want it to be negative, then place in the hallway each period is not conducive to cooperative work. Or independent study, who knows? How's that?
They check out space. Teacher checks out space and they have to review it running the class. In fact, there are actually 2 classes. See, we have 2 classes running in the center and the students in the stuff. In the classroom, it depends on who's in. If a classroom teacher is choosing to do the classroom, the teacher's classroom is updated. If it's a guidance counselor coming down and doing the guidance center time, there's no classroom that's updated.
Under these circumstances, many students opt to use the media center as a formal classroom and study hall.
Okay.
How's that? After circumstances.
All right, but then I've got to change the first half of it also then.
No, why? Because under these circumstances, many students opt to use the media center as a formal classroom and study hall.
Well, no, actually, the formal classroom is.
Formal classroom is where the teacher is going into the media center.
Okay.
And has an expectation of a certain amount of,
So under these circumstances, many students opt to use the media center as a study hall, where simultaneously formal classes are solving.
However,
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to kind of make some sort of statement about the media center and that combined kind of.
Yeah.
however, the media center also is used as formal classroom.
That was said like a true educator. Simple, direct, and to the point. That was good.
Perry, is the media center ever overcrowded in your Susan's estimation?
I would say it is relatively frequently overcrowded. Because you can have the half-wall lab, you can have you can have a class going in there, you can have a class going back in the learning commons, and then you can have 60, 70 kids also in there trying to
Study.
So
So maybe we capture that statement.
why would a teacher opt to have a classroom in the media center when she's got a classroom?
Research.
Back in the day, we used to do research.
Yeah, but that was back in the day.
I would speculate that if you want to use a Chromebook card, first of all, the Chromebook card's already there, so you don't have to bring it down to your classroom. You just bring your kids to that. And it is accurate. It's a relatively comfortable space because you've got nice tables. It's a larger space than you would have in your classroom.
So, is there a demand for Chromebooks, Chromebook cards at high school?
Is there a high demand? Oh, yes, there's very
How
high
many do you
demand.
have?
We have 3 Chromebook cards available for checkout by teachers. Guidance has a Chromebook card that they use.
That we share with business.
But they also share, we also have some Chromebooks that are used in math classrooms. And then we have 2 computer labs that can be checked out intermittently. And we did a study of the rate of usage, and it is very high.
So,
If the high school has such a high demand, why are we going one-to-one at the 8th grade? Why don't we just
It's
give
a
them to high
different
school?
question for a different time.
I think one of the reasons the teachers like to go into the media center is that sense of collaboration. So if the kids are working together on a project, if you're at a table like this, 4 of us can sit down. Maybe somebody is getting books or materials or something from the printer. We're working on our Chromebooks. Two can break off here. Our classrooms are relatively small, and when you have 25 to 30 desks in them, it's not really conducive to the kids working together in these small, to the collaboration on these things. It's tight in the classrooms.
So there's more space in them.
Yes, and when you try to turn all those desks around to hook together, doesn't work as well.
Okay, so I've just tried to make the paragraph flow a little better. Approximately 100 students each period are scheduled for study halls in locations not designed for learning or study. Most of these students take their study hall in the media center. In this case, the media center is simultaneously used as a formal classroom by teachers and a study hall area by students. Other students have study hall on portable tables in the auditorium hallway, a large space with lighting suitable for a hallway but not designed for prolonged and intensive study. Cooperative work between students and solitary study are difficult in the auditorium hallway.
Do you have Wi-Fi in that hallway?
Yes, there's Wi-Fi everywhere.
Do we want to kind of indicate that the media center is often over, like, kind of seemed that there was a pretty regularly that it was
It is
overcrowded.
almost always crowded.
Would that be a top
Regularly
bullet?
overcrowded.
And I think using it for study hall deviates from the purpose of what the media center can do. And that there's a lot of collaboration with teachers that they can do. In fact, it was one of the things that was a commendation out of the NEASC report, is the work of the librarians with the teachers and the kinds of work that they do together. We could have more of that collaboration going on probably. But they are managing a lot of study hall kids up there.
The Media Center staff has been incredibly flexible, and I am asking them to do things that should not really be done in the Media Center.
Yep.
House study, that should be something that they do. I don't have anywhere else for them to go.
If the study hall students vanished out of the media center, what happy things happen as a consequence or are capable of occurring in the media center that are challenged? Could there be 2 classes in there, for example, or?
I think you can get, I think that media center staff could spend more time doing work with teachers and with classes. As it is right now, they're having to spend a fair amount of time managing kids in there for study hall, checking out resources, asking them to sit down, supporting kids are in there, which is great, but that would allow them a lot more time to be working directly with teachers. I think it would free up more space in the media center for classes to be coming in, doing work.
And are students in there on an ad hoc basis except for study hall? Like if I want to make use of the media center during the school day, is it really kind of only the study hall?
You schedule in a class otherwise, so you don't have.
So it's either after school or?
After school, there's tremendous usage of the media center after school as well. We keep the media center open until 4:30 every day. And that's specifically so there's space for kids to come and use it, and it gets used a lot after school. It also gets used a lot before school. You walk in the media center before school started, and there's a pretty significant number of kids studying, working together, going on.
The transition about there is not.
So it's fair to say that some number of full-time equivalents are.
Are you talking about the transition?
Study hall monitors.
No, that is in this
full-time
case.
media coordinator.
In this case, it's a full-time
media
I could probably just start with that, the media center.
different hours, so we can cover early morning and then cover afternoon. And I would say that all 3 of them spend a pretty decent chunk of their time. I haven't asked them the question, so I don't know exactly what it would be, but a decent chunk of their time just dealing with.
Take a facility and say media center.
Because of overcrowding in the media center.
Say that they're being simultaneously used in the media center, and it's whatever, less than ideal or some sort of
Well, I just said it was overcrowded in the media center. And then I'm saying that both teachers and students are using it for different purposes.
So who oversees the students in the auditorium hallway?
There are teachers assigned to study hall duty, so they do 2 study hall duties every 8 days.
So do they perform the same function as the teachers up in the, or the people in the media center? Would it be like helping in some way, or are they just there keeping
That
quiet?
was second auditorium hall right there.
They're just assigned to make sure the kids are where they're supposed to be, that they're being reasonably quiet.
So if they were if they had a classroom, if that was a classroom for study, would they be the same way? They would just be there to make sure they're where they're supposed to be and that they're reasonably quiet and not fighting?
I think we would be able to do more around making it, I think we would be able to make it a more productive learning environment where in the classroom as opposed to being in the auditorium hall.
You mean productive because they'd have more
Making sure kids are on
resources, or
task, being able
productive?
to work individually with kids, that sort of thing.
Because, I mean, is it tutoring? I mean, are any of the studies, I mean, it's quite a different area, but studies assigned for tutoring, like running tutoring sessions? So you actually have to sign up somewhere for tutoring?
Yeah, through our academic support center, students can sign up for peer tutoring, so they can participate in peer tutoring during the study hall period. They can also do it before
But it
school or
wouldn't
after
happen-
school.
It wouldn't happen in these areas, media center or the hall?
It would most likely happen in the media center or in the ASC, which is the academic support center, which is in the back corner of the media center.
Okay.
It could potentially happen in the foyer, but
As,
most likely.
it'll take away the green line as a study hall,
Support center in the back of the media center.
where the green line is.
Yeah.
If you put as and as a study hall, I think then the green line will
Midway
disappear.
through the line.
After teachers and put as after and. See if that helps it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've been struggling
I
with that
know.
for 10 minutes.
Grammar checker inside Word.
The green one is for grammar, yes, and it drives me crazy and I can't figure it out. As a, put a back in there. As a
As
study hall.
a study hall.
Excuse me. Space.
See if that works.
All right, let's go on to the next paragraph before the green line comes back. There are 10 teachers who do not have dedicated rooms and must travel to different, who do not have dedicated rooms and must travel to different rooms with a cart containing all of their teaching materials. The effect of this is to reduce the actual face time spent teaching each day. If a traveling teacher requires 2 minutes at the beginning of each class to distribute material and 2 minutes at the end of each class to collect the material, there's a loss of face time of 4 minutes per class. A class period is 44 minutes, so this loss of face time is equivalent to missing a class every 11 days of the school year.
2 small quibbles. I would say there are at least 10 teachers who do not have dedicated rooms because it kind of depends on how you count it. There are teachers who are in, there are more teachers than that who have 3 classes in this room and 2 classes in that room, but they might be adjoining, so they're not necessarily traveling on a cart, but are not in a dedicated class. And the last thing I would say is our periods are 46 minutes.
All right.
Sorry to mess up your math.
And are we promoting that we want to have a classroom for every teacher?
No.
Because I would think that in some instances, I mean, Is it a bad thing that some teachers don't have a classroom?
We're not saying that. That's taking this to the extreme. Because, remember, the summary says we need 6 classrooms and a science lab, not 10 classrooms or more. So, if you've got for example, if you have 2 teachers teaching American Lit, maybe their books are spread across 2 rooms and they only go back and forth between those 2 rooms. So the teachers move, but the materials are already in the rooms. And they don't need to spend the additional time sorting them. So I'm not there. I'm not advocating a room for every teacher, and I don't think we're implying it here. We're just, what's the effect on students of the current situation?
But as a first-time reader reading that, I would say, oh, there's 10 teachers that don't have a room, we need to get them a room.
It's fair for someone to ask that question. Yeah.
Can you, on the last line, can you change is equivalent to missing 1 class every whatever many days instead of a class? Sorry, just a picky thing.
Harry, is that count of 10, is that just over the collection of all teachers at all times? It happens that 10 of them over the course of their day may migrate, as opposed to at all times, and at all times maybe only 2 teachers are displaced in any particular moment. It's not full.
Over the course of the day, there are at least 10 teachers who are having to move from classroom to classroom.
So it could be at any particular moment that number count is less, depending on whether they're teaching at that moment or whether they're home.
Well,
something like that. Right?
Those 10 people don't have a home, so at any given period they're going to be in a classroom, but when they're moving, they might have 2 periods back to back in that classroom, but then they're going to have to go over to this classroom, and later on they're going to have to go over to this classroom. So
I see.
And they teach 5 out of 7.
5 out of 7,
periods,
correct.
right? So.
And I'm looking at, and this is core academic teachers, so we're talking about math, science, language arts, foreign language, and social studies.
For the electives, it's probably much worse, I would guess, right?
It depends. So, like our band teacher moves back and forth between different rooms, but that's because he's teaching different kinds of classes. Our art teachers are all moving back and forth between the same 3 classrooms, but to the point that somebody else made earlier, like the materials are stored there, so the teacher's moving, but they're not having to transport materials. So but that in the 5 core academic areas, that's the number.
And this is only a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
Next year's schedule will be different, and there'll be a different number and a different configuration.
Good point.
I think that implies that we should say for this school year, the schedule works out to be this particular number.
No, I think it says that in the beginning,
Yeah, so
though.
at the beginning, that it doesn't
Yeah.
address, it's a snapshot in time.
Yep.
So are we okay with this paragraph?
Yep.
I wonder if 4 minutes out of a classroom, and to say that every 12 days you're losing a full class. That sounds horrible.
It is. It is.
But in reality, we're talking 4 minutes, so are you telling me that when teachers go into a classroom, the class starts, boom, right in the money?
No,
And
I'm
it didn't know
not
that
saying
happened to
that.
those classroom
I'm saying that
teachers, too. But
whatever the normal situation is,
Right,
it's 2 minutes worse at the beginning and it's 2 minutes worse at the end.
exactly.
So if
If
classes
they're
were
lucky,
40
it
minutes,
might be
and
three.
again, it's,
Yeah, I don't
they
know
get
how
an
long a
extra
teacher
4
takes
minute
to
penalty.
prepare. But I'm saying that if the fact that they have to unload their carts at the beginning and reload them at the end requires 2 minutes on either side, that's an additional loss of 4 minutes of teaching time per day.
And then I would have to ask you, are they losing learning time? They're losing, they're looking at this as a day, but in reality,
Yes.
are the kids losing?
They're
Well,
losing
they're
learning
not
time.
there to be able to just stand there and ask questions at the end of class, or just
Right, and that's,
be responsive and just be aware of what's going on. You're worried about hustling off to your next class.
Right,
I've
and
had
then-
my kids tell me that, well, did you, you having a problem with them? Did you ask them? Well, they're not time.
They have to get the next place on time.
And I think I take it as Bob trying to quantify things. We're in the age of data and you're trying to quantify something and you can't really quantify that loss of, if I'm the teacher and I'm in this period, you can stay and ask me questions for those 4 minutes because you're going next door and I'm waiting for my next class to come in.
What's probably the more relevant than thinking about is actual teaching lost time?
Yes.
It's the ability to interact with students and answer their questions and make,
Yes.
in my opinion,
So you could maybe even add a sentence there saying, this also leaves out the chance for students to
Yeah.
reconnect or,
I just want to see if I don't have that someplace else. Just,
I think
no, I don't. Okay.
we need to try to quantify things.
in case the student needs to clarify something or ask a question or didn't hear the homework or whatever.
So the standard period time is 50 minutes for travel.
So those are, so those are total 10 teachers that are core academic teachers that are kind of moving around. Really,
This also reduces
We got one. There are 10 who are, but we're bouncing
The total number of 20 that are moving around, but they're moving around for a purpose. That makes more of a.
So, I was looking at my spreadsheet trying to figure it out. Most.
I didn't hear you.
I was trying to figure out what most teachers find.
Oh, well, that means it's mine.
Well, there's, like here's an example, like our, one of our math teachers, Susan Tranfield. She also teaches computer science, so she leaves our classroom to go to a computer science classroom.
That's a good idea, I'm gonna say.
But that's not because crowding, that's because she
No,
has
I'm
to.
joking.
Yeah.
But then there's a teacher who uses her room, that same room, 3 periods a day.
So I added a
and then is in
sentence,
another
this
classroom next door,
adversely
2
affects
periods a day.
opportunities
So,
for students
She's going from
to
classroom
interact with
classroom.
teachers before
But it's not the same
or
thing as
after
having to go out in a
class.
cart, go have
Yeah,
possibility
yeah.
or some teachers have to do. Or having
Okay.
3 different rooms.
We're doing a save here, so
Yeah.
we're done.
Yeah.
No, I save more often than every paragraph, believe me. But, science labs, this section just covers what we covered at our last meeting about what the situation is. I started off describing the difference between a 4-credit course and a 5-credit course, a 6-credit course. I do make the point that all 4-credit courses do lab work, but there's much more lab work in 5 and 6-credit courses. And in the current year, we have 22 students who wanted to take the 5-credit accelerated level biology, but were turned away. 6 college prep students were turned away from a 5-credit CP biology course. 17 students were turned away from the 5-credit college prep chemistry course. Anatomy and physiology used to be 5-credit courses and are now 4-credit courses due to space and personnel issues.
Okay, so that bullet,
Anatomy and physiology is the name of a course, so.
Oh, I thought they were 2 separate courses.
yeah, that's
Okay.
one class. So the anatomy and physiology course was,
A 5-credit offering.
yeah,
It's an offering now, okay.
and due to space constraints is now only offered. That, because I did.
Is
Space
everyone
and
okay with me taking out space and personnel and just leaving
No,
space?
it's space and personnel.
Yeah, it's both.
Okay. But even if you had the personnel, you still would have the space issue.
Right.
Okay.
So R has become is, right? Is, and courses have become singular.
But it's now only a 4-credit course, right?
Yes, anatomy and physiology is only a 4-credit course.
So I think you need to say that it's, because in the other one was something. He's got.
What?
Presently offered only as a 4-credit course.
Well, it's, you couldn't sign up now, right? I mean, you're either in it or.
Okay,
It is here.
just put it what you said.
And I do make clear that students who wanted 5-credit courses and could not get into them were given the chance to take a 4-credit course in the same subject.
Did every student get the science that they needed to graduate?
Yes.
Can we say that? Because nobody's being denied science. I mean, they're getting
No,
their science.
we're not suggesting that anybody's being denied science. I don't need to defend anything I'm not.
That
claiming.
shows flexibility and responsiveness to me, that we have space constraints, we have personnel constraints, and so the class offering has become flexible to try to accommodate that. Is it optimal? That's not for us to decide right now. I think it's just the facts are the facts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
I'd like to see flexibility and responsiveness.
What?
I'd like to see flexibility and responsive in that. I just don't want it to paint a picture that somebody's not getting science.
It says if you
Well,
have
maybe not getting the science they want.
Well, the last bullet point says that if you didn't get the 5-credit, you were offered the 4-credit. You were guaranteed the 4-credit if you wanted it.
I mean, everything up there is factual.
No one's, no one's being denied dessert in the cafeteria, is a parallel here. They may not get the dessert they want, but they're getting.
But they don't need dessert to graduate.
They're
They're doing
right.
science.
And if there was a problem with graduation with not getting certain courses, then it'd be a bullet item. So it's not
Yes.
a bullet item, so
Yeah.
we're not stating.
It would have been higher up than this, too.
Caps and all of
All
them.
right, so moving on, the number of sections of extra credit science labs has decreased. At the same time, the range and breadth of science courses has increased, and the two are related, for as the range of courses increases, the room suitable for those courses remains the same, and extra credit science labs have been reduced to accommodate the new courses.
Okay, we have to pick that one through. I don't think I got all that.
I'm just trying to see, there we go.
Are you saying the new courses need a lab, therefore,
They're using the
Because there are more of
same
them.
space as, they're limited to the same spaces as the other science courses.
More classes are jammed into the same number of rooms, so something has to give if you have new course offerings.
That's an accurate statement, isn't it?
yeah,
Because we have to,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
personnel assignments as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The number of extra credit science labs cannot be increased without additional dedicated space. The priority for this additional space is first biology, then chemistry, followed by physics. I make that point so people understand where the demand is, because laying out a physics classroom is different than biology. And I think if you're in my generation, biology was up and coming.
Based on demand.
I personally just have problems with the primacy of biology now in science over physics. I mean, I'm just not used to it. I know that is the case. I'm just not used to it.
it's MCAS driven.
Yes, Bob, can we put the priority parentheses based on demand? Because I'm
I don't want the
not,
chemistry teachers yelling at me.
I don't want chemistry and physics teachers telling me that they're coming in
Yeah, this is
behind
not
biology.
An administrative.
And I don't think,
All right.
do you know what I mean? I think you have
We
the
don't
lineup
take
correct
biology
based on
to
demand.
But
And in fact,
basically every
the whole
takes
sophomore class takes biology
But you can also
primarily
take
because of
emphasis, you can take
MCAS.
the engineering
But
So you don't
also
have
it's
to take
pretty much what
biology
the
while you're
sophomores
graduating.
take.
Right.
But essentially,
But it's also,
That's the sophomore class.
that's the area of science where the future job growth is.
Yeah.
Whereas
most of our kids.
physics and electrical engineering and all that stuff.
Not all schools have the same sequence.
They don't
Yeah.
have to, but
So anything more about the science labs?
Do you actually need priority? Can you just say the
As far as what?
highest demand
Well, I was just asking
is
if biology is mandatory graduate.
in order ABC?
I put that in because
And our kids don't get it. But they get
and probably doesn't make a difference now, but going down the road, if you just say we need one more science lab,
Need a particular one.
the question is, which one should we put in? And we've collected, we're the primary source for that information, so I thought it was appropriate to put it in writing what the priority is as of today, right? Priorities could change, but as of the time we're declaring we need another science lab, we would want it to be equipped for biology. It can accommodate the other two, but the opposite's not necessarily true.
I understand. Thank you.
Does biology need more, like gas, do they need more stuff?
Equipment.
Then
Yeah.
chemistry, yeah.
I think I would actually, I would do it to the one that's hardest to fit out and go from there. I wouldn't base it on demand. If you were only gonna get one science lab, I would do the one that needed the most equipment.
Kim
I
can
would
double
agree with Lynn on that, actually.
Yeah, but that's what
Yes,
she's saying. is-
when it comes time to,
Why limit it?
right, but this is just demand, and I think if it came time for us to actually add a science room, we would look at how can we multi-use the different rooms, and where are the ones we can't, and I think physics is the hardest.
But if we prioritize it, we're kind of limiting the end result.
I don't think so, because if you say, well, what we need is another physics room, because the physics right now is in the biology room, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And bio can be in a chem physics or a bio room,
Okay.
but physics can only be in a physics room.
What are the particulars that?
I'm talking, but I don't know those, Perry may know those.
I would want to have the science department head.
Yeah, that's fine. So,
So in short, physics is less mobile.
I think so.
Really, I would think physics would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
well, because you've got to have the Bunsen burners going and the electrical outlets.
All that electrical.
And, I figured biology made sense because you need the hoods, which you don't need in physics.
But you need them in chemistry.
But you need them in chemistry and stuff like that, yeah. But to me, biology is more related to chemistry than it is to physics, but.
So I think the key thing is, if we're looking at science labs, building in flexibility, because we also are building in for the long term, and maybe there is a shift, and we have a lot more physics than chemistry being offered, because.
If people are more comfortable, then I would take, if there really isn't a defined priority, I'm comfortable taking out that sentence.
Yep, I'm good with that.
All right?
Well,
What purpose does it serve?
can't you just say the additional space based on demand is first biology, and that way it's,
Okay.
I think that's an informative, I found that very informative.
Or could you say like any additional space would need to be multi-use to accommodate demand across sciences?
Well, I think, isn't the point of that sentence that you have some unmet demand? And that unmet demand is first biology, then chemistry, then physics.
That's true by demand. That's true by demand.
My understanding was that biology had specific requirements, and because that was the growing part of the curriculum, we had to make sure to meet that. But if something else is really more demanding in terms of what facilities you need, then
Isn't it the demand in biology though, the 4 versus the 5 versus the 6 credit courses? Isn't that what the demand is the?
I mean, at the end of the day, this is
I don't
just
wanna say
stating
what
that the
room
demand is
to
this.
do.
It's
Yes.
not making you build one type of room right now,
I'm not
so
saying
it
that-
seems like it's a fine statement to leave,
Right.
that, kind of, you have it in there, and just a,
how about
Take it
this?
back.
The additional space based upon demand should accommodate first biology, then
That sounds
chemistry.
beautiful.
Except biology.
Does that colon belong there? Should accommodate biology, then chemistry, or primarily biology?
But now you're making a value statement.
Yes, I agree.
So I would disagree with that and say
We
that
don't
the
talk about
current
additional
demand
space, we just talk about the
indicates
current
that we need additional space for biology, then chemistry, then physics classes. if you feel that strongly about, you know, not making a statement about which class is more important, then you could say this doesn't indicate. We're getting so far in the weeds now.
Yeah.
But I think the point of this is you have unmet demand, this is where the unmet demand is, and leave it at that. And I'm, you know, I could be wrong, and I'm good with being wrong. But it's just a statement as far as how currently the demand isn't being met and where it's not being met. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Should we accommodate?
No.
No?
The current demand, you don't qualify it. So science labs cannot be increased without additional dedicated space. Current class demand or current unmet demand or current unmet course demand is.
Biology, then chemistry, followed by physics.
Right.
That won't get you in trouble.
Because you don't want to direct what that one classroom, if we agree, somehow it's voted in if you're going to do one classroom. Current unmet
Two
course
isn't.
demand,
Yeah.
you know, by volume, I don't even know if you want to say that, but that's fine.
There you go.
Okay. I then go on to make the point that for the non-science courses, students are able to get their desired courses. Now, that doesn't say that everybody always gets what they want. It's not affected by space.
You left out social studies.
And Perry, given the size of our general ed classrooms, have you had to limit the number of desks in each room to a certain number so that, you know, I'm thinking of some of the classes that are very popular that get oversubscribed very quickly, but you have to cap it at 28 because otherwise it's a
I don't think we
reading,
capped
you know.
because of room size constraints. Have we, Jody? We haven't said. No, it hasn't.
We have a couple of rooms where the teachers can barely move around.
Right, that's what I'm.
But we haven't made any decisions about, I need to cap this class at X number of seats because of rooms. I mean, the cap for room size would be preceded by the cap for educational reasons. In other words, we could physically accommodate more kids than we would allow in the classroom because that would be too many kids for educational reasons. So we might be able to fit 30, you know, we might be able to fit 35 kids in a classroom, but we don't ever put 35 kids into a class.
But is some of that held back because of the whole scheduling issue with kind of you know, everyone's conflicts going, the domino effect of?
No, I mean, not from a then class size standpoint that way, I don't think. Am I answering your question? I'm not sure if I'm.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, these are only 750 square foot classrooms.
Right.
And, you know,
We have classrooms where you can't, teachers.
and none of our kids shower after PE.
Yep.
And, you know,
That's a different problem.
different problem, but very real problem.
Yeah, but they don't want to use the.
So I'm just thinking that, you know, they really, to have a room that encourages collaboration and encourages kids to work together in cooperative groups, you can't have 35 kids in those classrooms.
No, the biggest we've ever had, we had a couple of psych classes at 31. And literally, Rick couldn't move. He could move along one wall
Yeah.
to the front and then one wall
That's
back
what I
to his
remember.
desk, and that was it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a lot of these classrooms, it's very hard for the teachers to move around and help kids individually at their desks. They're small
Yeah.
classrooms.
Okay.
And that's not something we can grab data on.
No.
But that's just as important as the teachers who travel on carts and don't have time to work
Right.
with kids in between classes.
Right. I mean, there are standards around X number of square feet for each child, but that's a different place in the discussion. Okay.
All right. I point out that business course demand exceeds availability. 100 students were turned away from the introduction to business. Due to lack of space and teachers, it does not require specialized space.
I think it's more accurate to say we're turned away from business classes. I don't think it was that specific course that it was 100 kids.
Yeah,
Intro to business? I don't think we.
we had 150 signups for intro to business, only ran 2 sections, you got 50 kids in there.
I thought it was 100 total.
I could be wrong.
So if you had the appropriate personnel for that particular demand, could you have had that course and people could have managed to fit them into their schedule? Is that a hypothetical you bothered to contemplate when that happened?
Say it again? If we had another
If you had the appropriate staffing last year when the schedule was made, would it have even been possible to accommodate them based on scheduling?
Yeah, so what happens is those 100 kids who didn't get intro to business, I called them down and said, you didn't get business, what do you want to take instead? Let's talk ceramics, let's talk marketing, let's talk molecular gastronomy, whatever, what fits in your schedule now.
But if we did have an extra business teacher, we could have accommodated them from the human resource side, but I don't know where I would have put them.
Right.
The foyer looks good.
Get some stuff up there to handle the acoustics?
And it's 100 business, it was 122 kids requested intro to business, and we did 50, so it was 70 something. So there were other business classes that we had to cut, so it was 100 business classes.
So, do you just have the one business teacher?
Yes.
Okay. So he's got 2 intros and then 3 something else.
2 intros, and then he has multiple semester-long classes as well. So he's got a year-long
Business?
accounting class. So we've got 2 intro to business, we've got an accounting class, we've got personal finance, we've got entrepreneurship, marketing.
So you just have the one business teacher?
That inquiry, I don't know, did you have any chance to look at doing a similar activity that we did for the science labs for the other?
I have not done it
Okay.
yet, but
I think that would inform this kind of conversation as to what classrooms we have left.
yeah, so one of the things Michael and I talked about was me doing what you did with the science labs, trying to do that for other classrooms throughout the building. Do you have an electronic copy that you could send me of the?
Jody did that. Jody provided that.
Well, I was asking the wrong person.
Wait a minute, do we need to do, that's a lot of work. Do you really want to do that?
I'm just kidding. I can, it won't take that. I have the data already established.
I'll help
It's just a
out.
matter of going through. And the science labs are more complicated than regular purpose classrooms because you don't have like the extra lab stuff going on. So
You're going to do all
We'll
that?
talk.
she won't do it. I will figure it
I will-
out. I'm saying,
You're on
I'm not
record
gonna-
now.
I'm not going to ask you to do that.
I will.
Come down.
Bob and I will work together to get
Yeah, I
that
will
done.
help with the groundwork on that.
Bob and I will work together to get that done. Can you send me a copy of the?
I'll show you how, well, come down, we'll spend a few minutes tomorrow, I'll show you.
Okay.
Oops.
Just don't make her leave. My kids.
You tried to give her credit.
God.
Did you see the gleam in my eye?
It wasn't a gleam in her eye.
State wants 80%.
I'm good with the evil eye, Bob.
80%.
Yeah.
In other elective courses, between 100 and 50 to 200 students were turned away from the food and the digital photo courses due to lack of space and teachers. These courses do require specialized spaces.
There's a do missing, if you intend it.
Do require, well,
Well,
you could leave it out. You got your subject and your verb there.
48,
moving on. Next slide, please.
Perry's contemplating.
50. Yeah, that's going to work, because it was 150 kids, just digital photography alone.
Okay.
Oh, wow. You should probably indicate that.
And
150 kids in digital photography alone.
Yeah, we had 202
Because that's
requests, and we accommodated
specialized
48.
equipment.
What does that cover for, like, it's an elective
The
or?
specialized equipment's a different conversation than we're having here.
True.
Both of these courses require specialized spaces, and they're way oversubscribed.
Okay.
Should you say specialized
So
places,
that
spaces
they
and
pick it because they
equipment?
like it, and.
I don't want to, I don't want to get
He just wants to do
into how
space.
expensive, you know,
Okay.
it's, you're opening up another can of worms there.
Yes, that is very, so we had 150 not accommodated in digital photography, and we had another 50-ish not accommodated in foods. So that is spot on. Well done.
And it's not food, it's foods. To be really nitpicky.
I'll give into that, so I don't get the evil eye.
Students were turned away from food.
Didn't get the dessert.
So when you have 200 like that, that's equivalent of 8 classrooms,
Yes,
more or
but
less,
you're looking at
right?
it wrong. It's 150 in photography and 50 in food, for a total of 200.
Got it.
So that means,
And-
you gotta get rid of the 200. Sorry.
So it turned out that these people spilled over into various other electives.
Correct.
In terms of handling them, and those electives had space by and large, or accommodation.
Yeah, and then we do
schedules.
things like we have a cap size that we want, that we think's right, and we have to increase that, and then we start to bump up against the school committee requirement that students are in 25 credits, and you start saying, okay, well, if I don't have a class to put this kid in, then they're sitting at 24 credits, or they're sitting at 23 credits, and trying to be very diligent about that, and working with guidance to make sure that we're getting kids fully scheduled, but it's hard to do when you don't have.
And on the flip side, if you actually could accommodate them, would other classes would have deemed collapsed for lack of population?
Not necessarily. For instance, I can't count the number of freshmen who came down who had a semester period where they could have put a course, and they wanted one. We didn't have one to put them in.
Meaning all possibilities that would work for them were full enough so they couldn't fit.
So then you end up with more studies.
So then that child,
kids in the foyer and
those
these-
kids had more studies than they wanted.
Right.
I think, that, our kids want more classes by and large.
Yep.
So I just simplified this because Perry took away the ambiguity between 150 and 200. And I just said 200 students were turned away from these courses due to lack of space and teachers. And that ends the section on what are the effects of overcrowding on students.
Should you save?
Pardon me?
Should you save your
I did.
document?
I did. Then I go on to talk about the next bullet item on the executive summary, which is the effect of student population on growth on space needs. And I said that our only available estimate of the number of students assumes the population of the 3 towns does not change, and it's an unrealistic assumption. Are we okay with that? Okay. The growth and/or expansion of new courses is not defined by any forward-looking plan. It's a year-to-year decision. It's impossible to determine future space needs without knowing the classes that will be offered, even with a stable population. And in recent years, the growth of courses has occurred outside of the core curriculum of science, math, English, languages, and social studies.
So are you saying that growth of courses has occurred in non-core classes, in non-core areas?
Yes, that's what I've gotten in the past few weeks.
We've had pretty significant, when you say growth of courses, you mean adding new courses to the program of studies? Because we've had a pretty fair number of courses within those core areas, although you could kind of think of them as...
Well, we've talked about digital photography,
Yeah.
journalism, theater arts, music as courses that are being offered, and those aren't part of the...
Right, bioethics though, which will be a science, English
Yeah.
combined course.
Yeah.
Social anthropology, which will be a new social studies course.
So could you say in both core and electives, or you don't call them electives, what is it called? Not electives. It is.
But core and non-core?
Well, I guess I would go back and say that in recent years, the growth of these courses has up, which is what I do here. The growth that we've talked about, the proliferation of courses has been outside the core curriculum for the past few years.
So last year was about 50-50.
Because...
50/50, in other words, about 50% of the new courses were in core areas and 50% were in non-core areas.
All right, that, well, see, that didn't come across.
I got that.
Like, well, what were some of the courses in the core?
So we had literature and science of epidemiology, just called epidemiology. That was a combination English science course for seniors. Maritime studies in science and literature, also combination science English class for seniors.
Okay. Now, let me ask a question about those courses. Do they require specialized classrooms?
They require science classroom. Maritime studies.
So they're part of the science lab issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they're scheduled in science, and they count towards the science graduation requirement. We had math foundations, which is a math electives course, kind of a support course in math. We have computer science, which I would consider to be electives, but kind of falls within the math program. But then we also
I should
have
just take that sentence out.
Freshman
then, right?
humanities.
forensic science, which meets the science requirement. Freshman world humanities, which is a combination English history. Molecular gastronomy, which is kind of an elective, but it can meet the science. So I would say.
But that requires a specialized.
It's not a bad thing to kind of say that the growth is in
I
core
think it's across
and
the
like
curriculum.
it's,
I
you
think
know.
we can just say it's across the curriculum.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
It's occurred across the curriculum.
And for this coming year, it's pretty even split as well.
Okay.
Across the curriculum.
The concept of, new.
Okay, has occurred.
I think it should.
You know, I want to be within the core curriculum and electives, is that what you call it?
Yep.
I need to go back and,
Yeah.
And maybe it's across.
I need to go back and define core curriculum again.
Right, and remember, we're a comprehensive high school, so it's the core curriculum, but part of being a comprehensive high school is having all of these other areas.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm not gonna nitpick, I apologize.
I'm very comprehensive.
I'm not going down that road right now. It's 8:35 and we're only on page 3. We have to go to page 5.
So, let's see, changes in the curriculum, reduced student capacity, some of the, let's see, changes in the curriculum when they need specialized spaces.
On the curriculum.
When the curriculum.
Or when it demands.
When the new classes need specialized spaces. Does that make sense? Changes in the curriculum reduce the student capacity of the high school when the new classes need specialized spaces.
Reduce available capacity? What do you mean?
Is it the
Reduce
student capacity?
student
It's actually classroom capacity.
Yeah, classroom, yeah.
Or, well,
Space.
well, the general classroom capacity gets used up by timing off.
If you take a classroom and you turn it into
That's the formula.
a computer lab, that's another space that's not being used as a homeroom or a general purpose.
So changes in the curriculum impact classroom capacity.
I do not use impact as a verb. You will never see in anything I write, do I use impact as a verb. And I'm not starting tonight.
Okay,
So,
that's fine.
so the capacity is actually not reduced, it's the flexibility that's reduced. You've still got the same number of classrooms, and you're probably using them just as fully, but your flexibility, and therefore your scheduling, runs into trouble,
Okay,
right?
so
Is that a sensible outcome of having specialized classrooms come out of the general classroom universe?
reduce flexibility, reduce scheduling flexibility.
Impacts flexibility.
Has an impact.
We'll have an impact soon.
Why do you have such a problem with that word? We'll take it
There's gotta be a
offline.
story there.
Is there a story there?
No.
You also not parents.
It's red, there's a story there.
Nor does the author.
I don't author,
He doesn't author either.
nor do I lunch.
Do you brunch?
Changes in the curriculum reduce the
No, the poor guy's gonna
scheduling
get it for that,
flexibility.
you know that. Changing the curriculum,
Ability when the new classes.
scheduling flexibility. Oh, that's good.
But does it also reduce the capacity of the school to house students? Do you know, again, if you put in another computer lab, aren't you losing more homeroom space?
No, because you can still sit in there as a classroom.
Do you use the computer labs now for homerooms?
Oh, why?
Do you use computer labs for homerooms? Can't remember.
But they're not regular homerooms.
I don't have a homeroom list on my computer.
Just every other Friday.
I don't think so.
But if you create, I mean, if you use a classroom to be a computer lab, then you can't use it as a classroom. You could only use it as a computer-based classroom. You could use it for a computer science course, but you couldn't use it for an English class.
Right. Right. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily reduce the student capacity, but it reduces the scheduling flexibility. Okay? And this happens independently of changes in student population.
Independent of changes.
Paragraph.
But we're not making so.
Changes in student population, although student population growth magnifies the effect. Is everyone okay with that? So then I talk about growth in new areas of the curriculum is both horizontal and vertical. So what that means is that in biology, you're adding courses such as epidemiology and related biology courses. A vertical would be, we're now starting theater arts. That's not in
Right.
something you're already offering,
That's something brand new.
okay?
So depth and breadth, I'm gonna keep doing this, Bob. If
Well,
you
the
don't
depth
have
and
to
breadth
take
is
it-
fine, just don't go to impact.
You know what, that you need a therapist for, depth and breadth.
Offerings or classes?
Not only additional sections of this. Is that opening sentence okay?
I don't like classes.
Courses.
Courses at work.
Courses such as computer science, theater arts, music, and wellness require specialized spaces. There's no permanent broadcasting studio for student use, and this has restricted course offerings in journalism. Additional space is needed to initiate alternative education programs, which are directed at students who struggle in a traditional course setting. These students generally do not have disciplinary issues and are not SPED students. Now, that was not specifically stated in any discussion, but that was something I inferred. I
They
really
are not
wanted to-
necessarily, they are not necessarily special ed
That's what I would say too.
students. And I would call it alternative education programming.
Okay.
And the next sentence says additional space on the last bullet item on the page.
Additional space.
Why do we have that?
Yeah, that's the first time we've gone outside of our current state of
Yeah.
affairs.
That's,
As much as
That's the
time.
vision that
yeah.
people think we don't have, so.
So What, that really doesn't belong there?
No, because
Yeah.
that's not something that we're evaluating everything we currently have,
It
right,
is,
through this?
yeah.
Well, alternative education, I don't think you have yet either.
Yeah, because we're talking about, aren't you talking about growth in new areas, the depth and breadth and all that stuff? How would that be, it seems like that would be part of it.
Yeah, but that's existing new areas, not the new areas that cause the problem.
Well, didn't we just put in the budget a TE person for alternative education?
Yep, we did.
But early education, we didn't put anything in.
No, the way it's written, it doesn't say that we have it.
Right.
It just says that additional space is needed to initiate this early education program, additional space which we do not have.
Perhaps if the early education program is initiated.
I think that's a better.
That's gonna be a lot of money.
Or is there a desire's been expressed to initiate?
A lot's gonna have to happen for that to happen.
Yeah.
Would be needed.
Would be needed.
Additional space would be needed to
Back up.
initiate.
Back up.
Would it be better just to kind of make it, the additional space would be needed for any number of new initiatives, including, and just give us an example?
That's good.
But not necessarily, because there's courses that we could offer in the traditional classroom. I think you're talking about unique space here, right?
Yes.
And early childhood.
I'm talking
would need
about
unique space.
possible additions to the curriculum that require specialized spaces.
Bob, I apologize if I zoned out. Can we go back to the beginning of this section for a second?
How far up?
At the very beginning of this section. Right there. I'm not going to quibble about your your introductory sentence there, but I do think at some point in this paragraph, we need to state that the direction of curriculum changes is directed by the policy requiring graduation requirements. Because that is what governs all curriculum changes that the high school has to undergo. What's underneath that is reflective of leadership within the school and teacher discretion in terms of desire to expand things. But we do have a plan. We absolutely know what they have to offer.
It is governed by the requirements for graduation?
Yes.
Set forth by the school committee.
But you wouldn't need to necessarily grow or expand any current course offerings in order to meet the graduation requirements.
Right.
Well, that's not quite true, because we did an expansion of the graduation requirements and we haven't grown the number of courses completely, because we still have 100+ kids per period that don't have a course. And we do occasionally have kids who don't get the 25 credits per year that policy dictates, and that's both because of space and personnel. So I do think we're somewhat behind the times, in that regard. It all ends up happening by the time they graduate, but it's not within the given year. I'm looking at the list recently, I didn't see anybody that's not graduating because of credit deprivation.
So, what you just said, you say that some students are going to summer school or somewhere else to get the credits they need?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
If you're in 25 credits a year, you end up with 100 credits. At the end of 4 years, you only need 90 to graduate. So they might be at 24 this year, they're not meeting school committee policy to be at 25. They're still on track for graduation. You guys be hearing from me if we put kids in.
Okay.
So another interpretation of that is that it's okay to fail by having a load that makes it possible to have that slack.
Well, I think every high school has some wiggle room built in, because we do have kids who occasionally fail classes. And where we don't offer a summer school, I would strongly advocate that stay there.
Yes.
Why don't we offer our students? I don't think we have committees for it.
There are several around here
Yeah.
that kids have pretty easy access to. Yeah.
Acton, Leinster, yeah.
I like the,
Going
I'm
back to
sorry,
this-
I want to go back to the last bullet. I like what
Okay.
Dave said.
Is it okay if I write it like this paragraph where growth and/or expansion of new courses is not defined by any forward-looking plan? It is a year-to-year decision governed by the requirements for graduation determined by the NRSD school committee.
I'll just make the statement that I
Just,
think
yeah.
forward-looking feels like an opinion rather than a fact.
So maybe just
I'm not saying
growth
that we don't have a plan, but
growth and/or expansion of new courses is governed by the requirements for graduation determined by the NRSD school committee.
I
All right,
thought
what is
the
that?
expansion was based on demand, what the kids are asking for.
I don't have a problem with growth and expansion of new courses is not defined by any plan. I don't have a problem with that. There is not a plan that is set.
No, we don't have like a 3 to 5 year curriculum plan.
Right. So is everyone comfortable with this second sentence?
Are you taking out forward-looking?
I think
I didn't hear any demand for it.
I mean, Michael
So
said.
you want me to take out, is not required?
I think that that's opinion laden.
departments, there are people.
Okay.
Long range plan?
As if we did this.
Or just A.
Yeah, but a plan.
How about
Which is basically.
growth and expansion of new courses is not defined or constrained by any existing plan?
I like that.
Forcing collaboration,
Yes.
which is the 21st century idea. I can say, because you can't connect them until the 21st century.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so are we okay with the second sentence now, too? Yeah. All right. So we hit the save button.
So actually, I don't think that the growth of courses is necessarily defined by the school committee. I think a lot of it is the principal and the teachers that,
It's just
saying, hey, we can make this
But it is,
course fly.
but
And
it
that's
is
different than the school
governed.
committee
But
trying.
it is still guided by the fact that we do
So
have a policy
they're under
in
a
place
plan.
that states the overall graduation requirements, so like they have to have a distribution of different types of electives such as art and technology.
You want to come back to bullet point?
I liked what Dave said about additional space would be needed to initiate, and I don't know if it's new or, new programs that would require
Specialized.
specialized spaces, specialized space such as an early education program with courses in childcare and preschool ed.
Make the focus of the sentence that additional space would be needed to initiate new offerings requiring specialized spaces such as, and then use
Yeah, right.
early childhood as an example
Right.
to support the unknown new courses.
Yeah.
Needed to initiate.
Oh, the bottom one. Bottom, there you go.
All right, so give it to me again.
Next one down.
Yeah, no, he's
Yeah,
there
I'm
now.
there.
Oh.
Additional space would be needed to initiate, what, any courses?
New programs.
New or special?
Yeah.
New or specialized.
Requiring specialized space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Special.
And I would put a
Such
period there
as,
and then say, for example, an early childhood education program.
And life skills. Childcare, preschool education, life skills.
Add life skills?
Yeah, because the early education programs have childcare and preschool education, I mean, there's life skills in there too. Well, it's all part of the childcare, preschool, life skills.
It'd be within your parentheses.
Does that look okay?
You just have to move the parentheses.
Life skills is not a separate program, it's a skill learned within the early education program. So within early education, your courses are in childcare, preschool education, and life skills.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
And you can get rid of an and.
I lost my cursor. There it is.
It's like having 7 or 8 backseat drivers.
Nothing like.
Don't make me stop this computer.
You had a good base.
Okay, good. Moving on.
Can we go up to the sentence where the school committee is discussed? I would just like to read that again.
You went too far.
That's too far. The governs.
Governed by the requirements for graduation determined by the school committee.
So they set the broad parameters of what the students are obligated,
That's every single class offered. I
but
mean,
they
really,
don't
right?
specify what the
No,
classes
it's
have to
more
be.
like
It's
one
the
going
credits.
through, like, when Nancy
4
first
years of
came on,
English, 3 years of science.
foreign
3
language
years
is
of
really important to her,
math.
so she came in and she
Years of
said she
foreign
wanted to make
language.
it a requirement that every student had to have 4 years of language. And we discussed it because we left it at 2. For a lot of reasons, we left it at 2. I mean, if you want to take 4 years, that's great. It's available, but you only need 2 to graduate. But we
They do
don't
have a technology and like fine arts or whatever.
Right, so what I'm tripping on is that I'm now understanding it's governed by this overall policy, but it's not driven by it. And it's possible to quickly reading it to say, oh, the school committee is driving this, and that's really not what is going on.
Well,
In the sense of,
I think my
least I don't
impression is that
think-
this is a high level. It's by the requirements for graduation. I mean, that doesn't specify that you have to take AP biology.
right. And that doesn't, in AP biology, you could say is that's part of the growth and of breadth, and then really has nothing to do with the governance. It's a demand-driven thing. One
But
could say.
but taking it satisfies one of the requirements for graduation.
We do have to make sure we have enough science classes so that every student can take 3 years of science before they graduate.
Sure, but AP biology is not really driven by, its existence is driven by a particular kind of demand, not by the school committee. Well, the school committee is providing it through the budget. And I don't want to take that implication that the school committee is driving, having multiple flavors of biology. And so that's one reading I could take.
No, it says governed, it doesn't say dictated.
Right.
Right.
Or directed.
Right, and I'm not saying that the text says that, I'm just saying the easy reader might take the implication of one sentence after the next that the school committee is driving this diversity. And it's not quite that. But I'm willing to say, no, that's not what anybody reads, and be quiet about it.
Okay.
Can I just, would it help to clarify so that people don't make that jump, to say the principal along with teachers make decisions about course offerings you make the program of studies by what, January of each year?
Yep.
By the program of studies? So that,
I think the statement, it's not a driving force. I mean, it's a thing that kind of is true, but I don't think it's kind of.
How about if we put, these requirements are broad parameters within which teachers and administrators must select courses, must offer courses.
or design courses.
How about if we just say it is a year-to-year decision based on demand governed by the requirements of graduation, so that it's,
Yeah, that's
it's
fine.
a demand, but then it still has to be under the umbrella of
What we
the
require you to
graduation
graduate.
requirements. Yeah.
Yeah.
That works. You need a DN based, or is it just base? It's an S. You getting tired? It's time to go home?
Yeah, I am.
I'm impressed with the rate up
Okay, I think that gets us to page 4. So,
You said what we were all thinking.
this is, again, going back to the executive summary, We state that there are other building problems not associated with curriculum changes. Teachers have identified the shortcomings. I've gone through Perry's presentation, Michael's draft 5 of back in November, and the NEASC report, and collected all the space-related stuff out of that. I think everything that's in those documents or presentations is here.
Can you call those out? Instead of just saying teachers and administrators? Can you call the presentation, the draft 5, and the ask? Have identified a large number of shortcomings?
Input from teachers and administrators, as documented in draft 5, NEASC, and wherever else, and Perry's presentation.
I really think that's a distraction. I mean,
Yeah, I don't, why do we, I mean, kind of, if it's, this is supposed to be just a summary of what we've
Yeah, I know.
Right,
talked about, not,
right. I mean, we
bibliography.
don't need to footnote our sources. We've got all the principles in the room to validate whether or not this stuff's correct. The thing with going through this is it's very detailed and it's getting late.
Yeah.
So,
Not a good enough reason, that last statement, but okay.
so there's a couple, I guess we gotta go through it. Is that what we should do?
Yes.
Put it up
Just
till-
drive through it.
Just drive through it?
Yes. So we can get it done.
I'm reading through it, and I'm not, there's nothing in here I see that isn't accurate.
Okay. Science labs. Many science labs lack safety equipment with some details. Experimental offerings would be increased if the deficiencies were addressed. Only one lab has a chemical fume hood. All labs have window exhaust fans which leak cold air into the building during the winter. Central heating is uneven in the science labs, with the result that the teachers sometimes send students out to their lockers to get coats, resulting in a loss of teaching time. And the fixed layout of laboratory tables and location of cabinetry in the science labs impedes collaboration among students.
I have a problem with the first one. Do the science classes and labs have the safety equipment that they need to stay to code, of kids safe?
I think we need to just defer. We went through our science management safety protocol, and I thought we bought everything either this fall or the previous fall, so I would want to just.
Well, but let's, the way I read this, or the way I meant it what I meant it to say is, many labs lack such and such safety equipment. If we had this stuff, or we had more of it in different classes,
Yes.
the curriculum could change to accommodate, stuff, nothing is being offered in an unsafe way. It's just, it could be offered in more of the labs if we had more of these.
But that's not what that says.
it's restricting the offerings you can do in a lab, that you're kind of restricted in what you can do in the lab because of the safety equipment provided. If you had different safety equipment, you'd be able to kind of do more experiments, different lab.
Add me to the same safety equipment.
So maybe if you said
Well, it could be a hood, it could be anything. It could be
labs were
safety
equipped
Yeah, but when you say
more
that,
with universal equipment, they could be used more in a more flexible way.
All right, this restricts the scheduling flexibility of science.
Exactly.
Was it more than that? It impacts the experiments that can be conducted in the labs, period.
and the types, yeah.
Yes, there are rooms where you couldn't do certain types of experiments because of the stuff that's available there.
So this
So it's
restricts
just
the
equipment.
range.
It could be any kind of equipment, it's the equipment, not
Yeah,
necessarily safety.
correct, yes.
Okay. Get rid of the word safety.
But can they do every experiment that they would otherwise like to do in one of the labs? Or is it just, kind of like, is it like somewhere they can do everything, but it might not be in that particular lab? Or is it that all the labs might not be, all the labs may be somewhat restricted if they had different equipment in them?
I thought I remember reading or hearing somewhere about a chemical shower. Was it needed or wanted or?
I would want to go back to my science department head.
Okay.
All right, so I
The
understand.
shower's just on the floor, the main floor. When we did.
The other thing is,
I would get rid
rather
of the
than
UV
go
goggles,
back to
sanitizers,
drains,
bed blankets.
and even the ones that have the emergency shower don't have the drains.
Yeah, it's just out on the floor.
Yeah, I thought I remember hearing that too.
There was some
Yeah.
showers and drains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking back in my notes to see if I could
I
find it.
think it's not many, it's any
Rooms
science
equipped
classroom
with-
that has an emergency shower, none of them have drains.
I just want to research that because I was later told that they don't come with drains because the intention is if they're needed that much, there's got to be a cleanup anyway. So they're not designed to have drains. So I just need to, I know it's not obvious to the untrained eye.
Right, yeah.
It's not what I would have thought
Okay, well-
either.
Because I think Bill was the one that came in and told us he
Yeah,
has
I mean, it's a
these
list
big
of-
bags.
Items, it's not saying that every single thing under there, it's just a
Okay, are we okay
summary.
with the first
That was a
bullet
big one
point?
for me.
Many labs lack equipment such as UV, I took out the word safety, such as UV goggles, sanitizers, fire blanket storage, and this restricts the range of science courses which can be offered.
Take out all of that stuff, all the UV goggles, the blankets, because if we need them, we should have them. So many lack equipment that restrict the range of science experiments or science.
I think you can say such as locked chemical storage, because that is a function of the room. That's not a mobile supply that you can bring in and out.
I know, but if we have a locked chemical storage in the room, we're able to do certain experiments, but if we don't have it, then we can't do those experiments.
Right, but can you say many labs lack equipment such as locked chemical storage, thus restricting the range of science courses that can be offered?
My gut is just to get rid of it and just say we lack equipment, maybe equipment and devices that restrict the range of science courses, or science experiments or science.
I would need more specificity than just
I don't want to insinuate that we are not safe and that we don't have what we need.
no,
I
okay.
agree with Lynn.
I hate to say that. What's his face?
I just need to have Martina clarify for me, because we addressed this, and I don't want to say something and spark anybody's concern that's not in existence.
Yeah, but I do think that an example that is room, where equipment sounds like it can be moved in. I think we want
specifics, but I just want to get the right specifics.
So
Right.
maybe highlight those,
Yeah.
because you know you're going to come back to them.
Yeah.
So we're not just finished this today.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you could phrase it in that not all the rooms do not have the full range of equipment so that any class could be scheduled into any science room.
But I think
That
beyond
covers
that,
all of those
Or
bases.
maximizing the schedulability of the room.
Exactly. I agree with both of those.
But I think it goes even beyond that. There's some experiments that can't be done in any rooms, is at least my recollection.
I think that's true too, yes.
Do you think those would be acceptable to the editor? Those 3 sentences? Without avoiding some specificity which may be incorrect?
Give it to me again.
Checking something.
Joe,
Guess what I'm checking?
you'll have to remember your sentence.
Maximizing the schedulability of these rooms.
And then my point was that if all science rooms had the full range of equipment, any course could go into any science room.
Right.
But that's not the case now.
Correct.
So did you say it so that meant future?
The equipment and setup of science rooms
It-
is limited, such that it restricts the schedulability.
If he doesn't like impact as a verb, he's not going to like schedulability.
Did you mean that? I did.
Yeah, he doesn't like
So
that.
it's now officially past my bedtime.
What's impact to you, Bob, now?
Yes.
Yeah.
5
Restricting.
o'clock comes earlier.
I'm sorry, I should
than
never have
I
gotten her started again, Bob.
Now I'm having trouble concentrating, thanks a lot. The equipment in science labs varies from room to room. Restricting the range of,
Get the rest of my hair. Impressive. He's multi-talented. Yes.
all right, how's that first sentence grab everybody?
Specific, some grammar there.
Yeah.
Experimental. It's not experimental offerings.
Course offerings or
Course offerings.
Yeah, just tell us.
The course offerings or the flexibility of the courses?
You okay with this?
or perhaps
Courses or-
all courses could meet in all rooms. That's kind of the point I was trying to
There's
make.
that piece too. So it's course offerings and,
If you have only so many rooms, how do you increase the course offerings if you have only so many rooms?
You,
I think it's really increasing the flexibility of the rooms, or, you know, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
increasing the course offerings, if you have 6 rooms and 6 rooms and book them up and.
but we can, you're right, because we can, what we're increasing is our ability to maybe limit the number of teachers that have to move, you know, the proximity of where they have to move, they move to the next room versus down the hall. That's really what we'd be improving.
Well, and the experiments you'd be able to do within some of those courses.
Right.
Why don't you just cut and paste out of your last sentence, experimental offerings could be increased if these deficiencies were addressed.
It's not experimental.
But it's really about all courses could meet in all rooms.
Right.
That's, I think, a useful point to have.
Right.
We actually have specialized science rooms.
Increasing flexibility in scheduling, you know, science courses.
So, the equipment in science labs varies from room to room, restricting the range of laboratory experiments to the specific rooms. It also reduces the flexibility in scheduling. Right.
No, but it reduces the range of courses that you could offer, because you can only offer 2 of a specific, you can only offer 2 courses that need a hood, you know, a hood. Instead of having some, you know, a chemistry course and a biology course that needs a hooded vent or something like that.
I think saying,
So, I mean.
although
if you
it would
only
be
have
nice, I
2
don't know if you're gonna
rooms,
say you're gonna have all 6 rooms be identical and all 6 of them have a hood and all, it might be really nice, but it also seems that someone might look at that and say it's kind of excessive to kind of have, you know, 6 rooms that could do everything.
Yeah,
You know,
that is
kind
the
of-
model, actually, though. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we're
But
shooting for.
So this limits course offerings. You can't have more than a certain number of sections of any particular course, because you only have a limited number of rooms.
Let's say that then, it limits course offerings by room.
We okay with that? No one says,
Yeah,
no one's
I think
protesting,
so.
let's
Yeah.
get moving. Let me get that changed back. Okay. the next one's a good example. Only one lab contains a chemical fume hood. Experimental offerings could be increased if you had more labs that did that.
Yep.
The window fans and even, okay. So then, art, music, and theater. The art classrooms are not ventilated, preventing the use of oil paints and other volatile substances. They're too small for students to all use easels. Art classrooms lack enough sinks or any sinks at all. Only one supply closet, no space to display student work. Only one ceramic kiln available for 7 classes, resulting in delays in students' ability to complete assignments. There's no pug mill, whatever that is, to efficiently recycle used clay.
I think we actually do have a pug mill in the budget for next year, but we do not currently have a pug
Okay.
mill.
Only one classroom, one art has only artificial light. If we go on to the auditorium, the theater arts courses share auditorium space with drama and the RAD class. It's inappropriate to schedule RAD with anything else. And both classes are oversubscribed and require specialized space.
It's not dividable.
Auditorium space is not dividable. No direct route from auditorium to main entrance. Auditorium not set up to provide direct feed of televised events. The common storage space used by theater arts, drama, spring musical, and RAD classes. There's no instructional space dedicated to music.
What do you mean by that one?
Which one?
No instructional space dedicated to music, because we do have a chorus room.
I think it's that you don't have any classroom that,
There's no band room?
I do
We have a
know.
band room. We have a band room and we have a chorus room.
does he teach band in that? I mean, does he teach a class in there?
The band
Music theory, where do you teach music theory?
in an adjoining small little computer lab.
Closet.
Yeah.
So insufficient space dedicated.
Space not designed for instructional purposes. That was a closet.
I mean, we have a band room, we have a chorus room, so we do have instructional space designed for use by music classes. But we also have other space that's not sufficient for the music classes scheduled there.
Is the band not considered like a class per se? I mean, I
No,
don't know.
Insufficient instructional space designed, insufficient instructional space for the depth and breadth of music offerings.
That's good.
Perfect.
That's,
Storyline.
Depth and breadth. That's good. If it works, right?
that's why we let it come to these meetings.
Distill it.
Add the bag and bag.
Insufficient instructional space. How does the rest
So you
of
gotta remember your line now, what was it?
Insufficient instructional space designed for the depth and breadth of music offerings.
And while you're typing it back in, no direct route to auditorium from main entrance or academic classrooms. Don't you want that? Don't you want that space separated?
Not if you're going to be using it for things like RAD and regular theater
Theater
classes,
stuff,
because
yeah.
then that impacts their ability to get to and from that class in the 4 minutes.
And events.
You've got to be a bit of a contortionist to get through there.
You absolutely do, absolutely do. And
It
events,
was
getting
laid out- It
elderly.
was laid out very poorly.
Yes.
But
I
it
mean, if you're
was,
talking about elderly, the elderly aren't going there to go through all that stuff, they're going there to see a show. So they'll go in the
Right.
side door.
They don't though. They often end up parking in the front and they come in the main entrance.
Or they come in through the gym door.
So is that poor communication on our part? I mean, because that's not the
There's no
entrance
parking on the auditorium side. You can park about 20 cars out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a step from the main entrance to the
Past your
auditorium?
bedtime.
Is it wheelchairable?
All right, so
It's
items,
all a little charitable, but it's.
items that we addressed in interim report number 1 that we haven't dealt with, and so I'm just, so we don't lose sight of them, I'm repeating them. Evaluate the effect of student outcomes and a lack of meeting space for teacher collaboration, administrative tasks, and professional tasks. develop a detailed list of heating and/or ventilation issues, review a 10-year plan for the maintenance and capital improvements, and determine how to develop reliable projection of future enrollment. And then, are there new action items that we need to undertake, or is that a discussion for, I don't know that we can start that discussion.
No, I'm kind of thinking that, but do you think there was one item that we talked about a lot that, kind of wasn't mentioned here, and that kind of gets into the 93% utilization, like scheduling of classes and stuff? And I think for a summary document, I remember talking about that a lot. Yeah. And that seems to be driving a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying we need paragraphs and paragraphs, but even just a simple sentence that, the 93% utilization for class scheduling is significantly, above the kind of the state recommended utilization rate or something.
That was good.
Yep.
I'd buy it. Actually, when we used that data point with NEASC, remember that? They were shocked.
I have that written down from a previous meeting. I wrote, the average classroom is in use 93% of the time. MSBA recommends 88% of the time.
I don't know if it might go in the loss of building capacity on the first page.
That's what I'm looking at.
So that on the first page, kind of
It is for
at the tail end of that.
lifespan.
The first page, I'm trying to figure out how to fit it in. I think it should fit in, but my heading is how does this lack of space affect students?
Yeah, but it's space needs task force findings, and we talked about loss of building capacity. I think you could stick it in there and kind of say, kind of all those things have impacted utilization.
I think it could be the very first sentence in that loss of building capacity. Currently, 93%. And then after the renovation, blah, blah, blah.
The meeting must be over, my battery's good.
That's a sign.
I thought it was 80%.
88.
The state's 88? 80, I think it's 80. No, 80.
I thought it was lower than 88 too.
No, I think it's 80.
Maybe I wrote down my phone, 85. I had written 85.
I saw 85 too.
85.
Going once.
I will look it up.
So our homework is to look at the action items that are listed plus new action items for the report.
Yeah. Okay, I will get a revised copy of this out.
Thank you.
Great work. Well done. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
I don't know, it's 2 weeks.
Is it
Right,
2 weeks?
Steve? I think it's 2 weeks. I will confirm that. I believe
Must be voting.
we will, absolutely. It is the 16th,
This is the middle.
7 o'clock.
No, it's gotta be like 18 days or something. 16 days or something.